The Marabou Muddler. This one with an orange tail, light olive wing with a touch of crystal flash in it, gold mylar body, and your standard deer spun sculpin trimmed head. Okay. I'm going to crimp my barb down like always. Got a size 8 streamer hook here that I'm placing in the vise. Alright. Thread I'm going to be using is a 70 denier UTC color in tan. I'm going to start quarter of the way down the hook shank, not right against the eye on this fly. Reason being is we're going to spin deer hair up there, and it's much easier to spin on a bare shank than it is one with a thread base or materials under it. Come back here, trim off your tag end there, a couple more wraps. Stop when you're hanging right above the hook barb or so when you get to the end of the hook shank. Okay, first material to go in is that hot orange tail. I'm going to grab a feather and strip off, maybe 2 inches of fibers, keeping them all together. Okay, there we go. All these little curly ends I'm going to trim off so I have a nice little easily manageable clump. Okay, tie these in as long as where you started that thread base. If you have some hanging over, just retrim. There we go. Okay, right up to that starting point again. Pinch and loop to make a catch. One more time. There we go. If they're flaring on you, you can do this before or now. Just get them a little bit wet with your fingertips. And keeping everything right on top. Come up in touching turns and tie down the rest of this butt end material so you have a nice even underbody. Continue to keep things forward. Okay. Takes practice to keep touching turns, but you'll get it. Never perfect. Getting there. And there we go. Okay. Come back where I missed a couple, because it always tapers down towards the end anyway. There we go. Okay, tails are tied in. Those are never coming out with that many thread wraps, and I have a nice even underbody without a bump step cut if I were to cut it here. Okay, I want to peel off by just pinching with one hand and using your thumb and forefingers fingernail with the other to get a tail length that you want. Don't use your scissors here. A straight cut looks terrible with Marabou. There we go. That'll work. Next thing to go in is some small gold wire that I'm going to use for the ribbing on this pattern. Tying it in on my side of the hook shank here. There we go. And I'm going to keep it in the same spot laterally along that hook shank. If you get it waving around too much, you will see that when you go to wrap your tinsel. Get right back to where you tied those tails in, and with open spirals come back up. Okay, put that in my material holder. There we go. Okay, next thing to come on is about 10 inches of size 12. In this case, if you have bigger, use it. It just takes less wraps. It's got gold on one side, silver on the other. Okay, I'm going to tie it in with the silver side facing out towards me, right at the tip. Only want to tie it in at the tip here. Okay, I'm going to grab just a dab of some Zap-A-Gap super glue here and wet the hook shank. It's more than I need. I'll let it absorb into those thread wraps and just let my paper towel suck up the excess. Alright, while that's still wet, begin your first wrap, turning over the gold side. Good. One wrap in front of the other, doing your best to keep it even. The good news is this is a double wrapped body, so the first one's not as critical as the second layer. Alright, so that super glue will be holding that in case I accidentally let go. It should hold it. Turn directions and come back up. This ought to cover up any mistakes that you made on the way down. Okay, just about to the end here. One more wrap, there we go. And making sure that's where I want it, I tie it off. Good number of turns there, I don't want anything coming out. This isn't a small enough fly to worry about excess turns in bulk. Okay, now that I've got a fairly smooth underbody, I'm going to go ahead and counter wrap my wire rib. Again, adding additional reinforcement and a little bit of segmentation. When I get right up to the front there, I'm going to make a full turn, keeping tension on that wire. Shorten my working thread here. I'm going to cross over it, one on the hook shank, make a loop on there. I don't know if you could see that in the video, but it ended up taking a turn from the front here around to the back, so I've got a U caught in this ribbing. That way it ain't coming out. Helicopter that off. Okay, that's good. Next thing to go in is the wing, and for that I'm going to use some light olive Marabou. Okay, get rid of some of the under plumes that aren't good looking fibers. In fact, I didn't like that feather at all. Here we go, this one's good. Okay, for the wing I want to grab twice the amount as I did in the tail, or close to it. Alright, get my fingers wet again just to calm down the static. Take and trim off these curly ends. Okay, make sure you've got enough to hang well over the tail there so you can pluck off them wispy little tapered tips that are no good. Alright, tie in right there, again leaving that bit on the hook shank bare for the deer hair, which is coming soon. Tie that in, some cross wraps through the butts, back up on some nice firm secure wraps. Alright, come up here, pinching the tail and this at the same time, pluck them off at the same length. Okay, there we go. Looks good. If you want a little flash in it, in this case I'll use a little bit of crystal flash in this kind of emerald olivey green color. I'm just gonna take 2 strands or double over 1 strand, whatever you want to do, and tie one in on one side. There we go. Trim those to length. I could have also just folded it over, but we'll just do 2 different cuts here. There's so many ways to tie flies that you get going and forget one way. It's not impossible to still add materials when you make a small mistake like I just did. And instead of having to tie in twice, I could have just folded it over and made 1 cut instead of 2, but no big deal, they're in. Flash. Okay, got some fibers hanging out here that are bothering me. There we go. Alright, we're ready for our head. First thing I am going to do though is put a little dab of head cement right here on all this. So every once in a while when you're spinning deer hair, if you pull too hard, especially in this 70 denier thread, you break it. This ensures that it won't come undone and really make problems for you. You just have to restart your thread. Alright, building up a nice even little underbody layer there. Okay, come to your deer hair pelt and cut off a decent sized clump here. I've heard it said that for an average size fly, if you cut off a clump, that when you pinch the butts together that they're about the size of a pencil, and I'm close to that. It takes practice really on knowing how much to cut for a certain size fly. Alright, once you've cleaned out the butt ends, I've combed them out, pulled them out, everything you want to do to get them clean. Stick the tips in the hair stacker. Pull those out in the direction that they're going to be facing on the fly. Got a little butt section in there. I can grab that and remove it. There we go. Tips are in line. Okay, one thing I am going to do though is shorten up just a little bit of this and even up these ends. Just like so. Okay, makes it easier to spin in my opinion. Alright, put these tips so that when they spin it makes a collar hanging just past the hook point or just above the hook point down below. Okay, alright, switch hands, take two soft loops just collecting, give it a little bit of tension until you see them flare, let off just a little bit with this pinching hand until it starts to turn, take another turn, let off some more, there it goes, it's wanting to spin, and there we go. Okay, take a check here and make sure that you get a good even spin around the hook shank. That looks pretty good. Pack these back. Right back. I'm pushing right back to where the wing was tied down so that things are tight. Okay. There we go. Bring all those back. Cut your thread through by pulling forward and then get up on the hook shank again. Okay, I need to cut one more clump of deer hair. Only this time you don't need to stack it and you don't need the tips at all. So spread the fibers out, clean the fuzz out. If you have a small fly tying comb like I do, I'm going to comb that out and get all the little bit of fuzzies out of there. Okay, before I go to tie this in though, I am going to cut off the tips. Start down where they're hollow and they all even out in color. Pull these back with my left hand and set these on. Same thing as before, couple wraps, let them flare, encourage the spin, and there we go. Okay, what you can do now is holding the wing out of the way, get these all somewhat in line with each other there. As long as you're somewhat straight up and down, you can kind of come through both sections of that deer hair, really making sure that they're married together. Don't go too much or you'll definitely see it. Alright. Pack those back, expose the eye. Again, pull your thread through and up onto the eye with a couple wraps. Okay. Last step with the tying thread here is to tie it off. I find it hard to get a whip finish on a fly that's packed right up to the eye like that with hair. So I'm just going to use my half hitch tool and go around it 2 times. Come up to the eye, slide those off on, and pull. Okay? And one more time, this time I'm going to go around 3 times. just to be super secure. Slide those loops right off onto the eye and pull that tight. Okay. Now it's safe to go ahead and just come in, knock off your thread, get your butt ends stood up 90 degrees from the shank of the hook if you can. Okay. Make sure everything is where I want it. Looks good. Alright, it's easiest if you take this fly off the vise to trim it, but I'm going to trim it the best I can on the video for you from the side, just so you can get an idea. Starting at the eye on top here, I'm going to cut at an angle. And just taking my time here, I'm going to take and clip off a tapered head on the top and sides. Okay, once I get near the bottom, I'm going to cut straight back on the bottom. I'm not going to worry about a taper. I'm going to try to clear up that eye a little bit. There we go. Nice and tight down there at the bottom. Okay. Just continuing to shape this guy. Every head is going to come out slightly different. Okay. There we go. That's coming out okay. I like to clear the eye the best I can. You can use your fingernails and pack it back out of the way when you go to place your head cement in there. Alright, so there's a few butt sections left in there, and what I will go through there and get those individually and clip those out as I go, but just to save time on the video, I'll stop here. Just keep going until you feel like you've got the shape that you want. One tip though is don't overdo it on deer hair. After you've trimmed for a while, take a look at the general shape. Chances are you'll probably want to just leave it alone, because you can definitely go too much when it comes to trimming deer hair. I will go through and get the butts, but this is what the finished product will look like. Take this one out for you. Okay, that's about what I'm after there when I'm finished trimming. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.